Just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the same advantages that you have.
We don't know each other very well, Nick. Even if we are cousins, you didn't come to my wedding.
I wasn't back from the war.
That's true. Well, I've had a very bad time, Nick, and I'm pretty cynical about everything.
I suppose she talks and eats and everything.
Oh, yes. Listen, Nick, let me tell you what I said when she was born. Would you like to hear?
Very much. Go.
It'll show you how I've gotten to feel about things. Well, she was less than an hour old, and Tom was God knows where. I woke up out of the acid with an utterly abandoned feeling, and I asked the nurse right away if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl, and so I turned my head away and wept. All right, I said. I'm glad it's a girl, and I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool.
I decided to call him. Miss Baker had mentioned him at dinner, and that would do for an introduction. But I didn't call him, for he gave a sudden intimation that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arms toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily, I glanced seaward, and distinguished nothing except a single green light, minute and far away, that might have been the end of the dock. When I looked once more for Gatsby, he had vanished, and I was alone again in the unquiet darkness. I think he tanked up a good deal at luncheon, in his determination to have my company bordered on violence. The supercilious assumption was that on Sunday afternoon I had nothing better to do. I followed him over a low whitewashed railroad fence, and we walked back 100 yards along the road under Dr. Eckelberg's persistent stare. The only building in sight was a small block of yellow bricks sitting on the edge of a wasteland, a sort of compact main street ministering to it, and contiguous to absolutely nothing. One of the 3 shops it contained was for rent, and another was an all-night restaurant, approached by a trail of ashes. The third was a garage, repairs, George B. Wilson, cars bought and sold, and I followed Tom inside.
Hello, Wilson, old man. How's business?
Can't complain. When are you going to sell me that car?
Next week. I've got my man working on it now.
Works pretty slow, don't he?
No, he doesn't. And if you feel that way about it, maybe I'd better sell it to someone else after all.
I don't mean that. I just meant... It was 9 o'clock. Almost immediately afterward, I looked at my watch and found it was 10. Mr. McKee was asleep on a chair, with his fist clenched in his lap, like a photograph of a man of action. Taking out my handkerchief, I wiped from his cheek the remains of a spot of dried leather that had worried me all the afternoon. The little dog was sitting on a table looking with blind eyes through the smoke, and from time to time, groaning faintly, people disappeared, reappeared, made plans to go somewhere, and then lost each other. Searched for each other, found each other a few feet away. Sometime toward midnight, Tom Buchanan and Miss Wilson stood face to face, discussing in impassioned voices whether Miss Wilson had any right to mention Daisy's name. Daisy, Daisy, Daisy. I'll say it whenever I want to. Daisy, Daisy... Oh.
Sure I did. I was gonna wear it tonight, but it was too big in the bust and had to be altered. It was gas blue with lavender beads. $265. There's something funny about a fellow that'll do a thing like that. He doesn't want any trouble with anybody.
Who doesn't?
Gatsby? Somebody told me they thought he killed a man once. so much that. It's more that he was a German spy during the war.
I heard that from a man who knew all about him. Grew up with him in Germany.
Oh no, it couldn't be that. Because he was in the American army during the war. You look at him sometimes when he thinks nobody's looking at him, I'll bet he killed a man. Want to go with me, old sport? Just near the shore along the sound?
What time?
Any time that suits you best.
Having a good time now?
Much better. This is an unusual party for me. I haven't even seen the host. I live over there, and this man Gatsby sent over his chauffeur with an invitation.
I'm Gatsby.
What? Oh, beg your pardon.
I thought you knew, old sport. I'm afraid I'm not a very good host.
He smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with the quality of eternal reassurance in it, that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced, or seemed to face, the whole external world for an instant, and then you concentrated on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. It understood you just as far as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you would like to believe in yourself, and assured you that it had precisely the impression of you that, at your best, you hoped to convey. Precisely at that point it vanished, and I was looking at an elegant young roughneck, a year or two over 30, whose elaborate formality of speech just missed being absurd. Some time before he introduced himself, I got a strong impression that he was picking his words with care.
Good morning, old sport. You are having lunch with me today, and I thought we'd ride up together.
With fenders spread like wings, we scattered light through half Astoria. Only half, for as we twisted among the pillars of the elevated, I heard the familiar dug-dug spat of a motorcycle, and frantic policemen rode alongside.
All right, old sport.
Right you are. Know you next time, Mr. Gatsby. Excuse me. What was that? The picture of Oxford?
I was able to do the commissioner a favor once, and he sends me a Christmas card every year.
It was a strange coincidence.
But it wasn't a coincidence at all.
Why not?
Gatsby bought that house so that Daisy would be just across the bay. He wants to know if you'll invite Daisy over to your house some afternoon and then let him come over.
Did I have to know all of this before he could ask such a little thing?
He's afraid. He's waited so long. He thought you might be offended. You see, he's a regular tough underneath it all.
Why didn't he ask you to arrange a meeting?
He wants her to see his house, and your house is right next door.
Oh.
We've met before.
His eyes glanced momentarily at me, and his lips parted with an abortive attempt at a laugh. Luckily, the clock took this moment to tilt dangerously at the pressure of his head, whereupon he turned and caught it with trembling fingers, and set it back in place. Then he sat down, rigidly, his elbow on the arm of the sofa, and his chin in his hand.
I'm sorry about the clock.
It's an old clock.
We haven't met for many years.
5 years next November. Where are you going?
I'll be back.
I've got to speak with you about something before you go.
What's the matter?
This is a terrible mistake. Terrible, terrible mistake.
You're just embarrassed, that's all. Daisy's embarrassed too.
She's embarrassed?
Just as much as you are.
Don't talk so loud.
You're acting like a little boy. Not only that, but you're rude. Daisy's sitting in there all alone.
James Gatz. That was really, or at least legally, his name. He had changed it at the age of 17, and at a specific moment that witnessed the beginning of his career, when he saw Dan Cody's yacht drop anchor over the most insidious flat on Lake Superior. It was James Gatz, who had been loafing along the beach that afternoon in a torn green jersey and a pair of canvas pants. But it was already Jay Gatsby who borrowed a rowboat, pulled it out to the Tumuli, and informed Cody that a wind might catch him and break him in half an hour. I suppose he had the name ready for a long time. Even then, his parents were shiftless and unsuccessful farm people. His imagination had never really accepted them as his parents at all. The truth was that Jay Gatsby of West Egg, Long Island, sprang from his platonic conception of himself. He was a son of God, a phrase which, if it means anything, means just that. And he must be about his father's business, the service of a vast, vulgar, and meretricious beauty. So he invented that sort of Jay Gatsby that a 17-year-old boy would be likely to invent. And to this conception, he was faithful to the end.
She didn't like it. Of course she didn't like it. She didn't have a good time. I feel far away from her. It's hard to make her understand.
You mean about the dance?
The dance? Old sport, the dance is unimportant.
He wanted nothing less of Daisy than that she should go to Tom and say, "I never loved you." After she had obliterated 4 years with that sentence, they could decide upon the more practical measures to be taken. One of them was that, after she was free, they were to go back to Louisville and be married from her house, just as if it were 5 years ago.
She doesn't understand. She used to be able to understand. We'd sit for hours.
I wouldn't ask too much of her. You can't repeat the past.
Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can. I'll fix everything just the way it was before. She'll see. Your wife doesn't love you. She never loved you. She loves me.
You must be crazy.
She never loved you, do you hear? She only married you because I was poor and she was tired of waiting for me. It was a terrible mistake, but in her heart she never loved anyone except me.
Sit down, Daisy. What's been going on? I want to hear all about it.
I told you what's been going on for 5 years, and you didn't know.
You've been seeing this fellow for 5 years?
Not seeing, no. We couldn't meet, but both of us loved each other all that time, old sport. And you didn't know. I used to laugh sometimes to think that you didn't know.
Oh, that's all? You're crazy. I can't speak about what happened 5 years ago because I didn't know Daisy then. And I'll be darned if I see how you got within a mile of her unless you brought the groceries to the back door. But all the rest of that's a dang lie. Daisy loved me when she married me, and she loves me now.
No. Wreck! That's good. We'll still have a little business at last. OMG! OMG! OMG!
M-A-V-O.
No, R.
M-A-V-R-O.
Listen to me!
R-O-G-G. What do you want, fella?
What happened? That's what I want to know.
Auto hitter. Instantly killed.
Instantly killed?
What are you doing?
Just standing here, old sport.
Did you see any trouble on the road?
Yes.
Was she killed?
Yes.
Thought so. I told Daisy I thought so. It's better that the shock should all come at once. She stood it pretty well. Was she driving?
Yes. Of course I'll say I was. She'll be all right tomorrow. I'm just going to wait here and see if he tries to bother her about that unpleasantness this afternoon. She's locked herself into her room, and if he tries any brutality, she's going to turn the light out and on again. Is it all quiet up there?
Yes, it's all quiet. You better come home and get some sleep.
I want to wait till Daisy goes to bed. Good night, old sport.
There was a faint, barely perceptible movement of the water as the fresh flow from one end urged its way toward the drain at the other. With little ripples that were hardly the shadows of waves, the laden mistress moved irregularly down the pool. A small gust of wind that scarcely corrugated the surface was enough to disturb its accidental course with its accidental burden. The touch of a cluster of leaves revolved it, slowly tracing, like the leg of transit, a thin red circle in the water. It was after we stared with Gatsby towards the house that the gardener saw Wilson's body a little way off in the grass, and the Holocaust was complete.
When a man gets killed, I never like to get mixed up in it in any way. I keep out. When I was a young man, it was different. If a friend of mine died, no matter how, I stuck with him to the end. You may think that's sentimental, but I mean it, to the bitter end. Are you a college man? Well, let us learn to show our friendship. For a man, when he is alive and not after he is dead. After that, my own rules to let everything alone.
Gatsby believed in the green light. The orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. It eluded us then, but that's no matter. Tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther, and one fine morning, so we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past.